start the other recorder. Good morning and welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran. I want to welcome the show host. I want to welcome my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Doing terrific, Todd. It's great to be back doing the show. It's always, it's like we've been doing this for many years now, and it's amazing how the topics keep flowing, and it's an interesting space, this podcasting space.
It is, and can you believe this is like 179? We're going to have like 200 on this show. Here's the funny thing: we did like 220 some episodes of the other show, so we're fast approaching. We might make 200 this year. Who knows? But anyway,
Yeah,
exciting stuff. Hey, I
yeah.
want to before we get into the podcast movement discussion today, Rob and I both, and I think even some of our cohorts in the podcasting space have been dealing with a serious issue over the past week, and I just want to preface this conversation with one thing. This is going to be complicated, and um, most of you know I spent 25 years in the military, and I'm a big supporter of freedom of speech, right to assembly. And I'm really this is what the country was founded upon. But the key
That's
word
a
there
big
is
but.
but,
Yes.
and there is we all know a serious situation happened in Charlottesville, loss of life, lots of people injured. Really, I think anyone with any normal morals just absolutely were offended and irrehensible what was going on down there. And Rob, it's kind of spilled over into the podcasting space a little bit.
Oh yeah. I think that the podcasting space is of the scale now and size and audience that things that happen in the real world have an impact on the podcasting world, and this week was a classic example of that. How the violence down there and the division in this country has it spills over into all sorts of aspects, sometimes unintended consequences. But there's podcasts out there that are on the hate side, and those cause a pretty complex dilemma for podcasting platforms. And I know we'll definitely talk about that. I don't want to steal your punchline here, Todd, but go ahead and we can dive into it.
Well, it started out. The first thing I did after I heard about the this happened, and forgive me, that what day did the protest happen? Last Saturday, or was it Sunday, or
Yeah, yeah.
so?
I don't even remember. It's been a blur ever since.
Yeah, so whenever it hit national news, and I heard about this first of all, I heard about this website that's homeless now, thank goodness. Um, I heard about this website that had said some just just horrible things about this woman that had gotten killed, and I'm thinking, do they have a podcast? That was when my
Yeah.
first thing in my mind. So I went to our administrative platform and I looked in our directory, and but being there was two shows for that podcast. I said, "Oh, please, Lord help me, don't let these be customers."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I loaded the listings, and they were unclaimed. So what they were is we had just we had pulled the entire we built a directory of everything, and they were two unclaimed listings. So really, there was no owner with the account, no um, associated user account with it. So it was easy. I just said, okay, that's gone. They're out of here. They're delisted. I don't have to send a takedown notice. I don't have to send a cancellation note. This was an easy one. And I know some other folks kind of did the same thing. But what really got me was I don't know if it was Monday or Tuesday, and I had basically kind of sent a message to both Rob Walsh and Rob Greenlee, and to both of them I said, hey, I just had to take down 2 shows. You may want to scrub what you guys have, um, and Monday I got a Facebook Messenger. He says, hey, this guy is on your platform, and he was just featured in a Vice video, and he's got a podcast. And this one I loaded up, and it was a different show, and he was a Stats customer, and I'm like, oh my god. So I called Barry, who's our legal counsel, and I said, hey, this is what we've got, and you need to review this show and make sure that number one, if he's invoking hate and violence, or it's one thing. This is where it gets weird. If someone has a opinion, as much as I may absolutely hate the opinion, I don't respect, but they have the right to say it, right? I think we all
Mm-hmm.
can.
Yeah.
I think we can all understand we have freedom of speech, at least in the United States, and in being a content platform, the last thing I want to do even if I absolutely makes my skin cringe, do I want to just say you're out of here? Um,
Yeah.
it's a fine line. So Barry reviewed it, and he came back and said, "Oh man, and no, they violate the terms of service. They're talking about violence upon others, and invoking hate speech, and we
Mm-hmm.
can terminate." So I did. I immediately terminated the account. We sent the termination notice. We canceled their subscription, and they were only using Stats. But in the when you're using our service for a Stats redirect, the Blueberry link is in the link to the media. And Angelo said, how do you want to handle this? I said, I want that link to go to Never Neverland. I don't want a redirect. I want it to be like when they click it, it's dead. I
Yeah.
want it to be obvious that that URL that they use for the Stats is no longer viable. And I almost immediately upon sending the cancellation message, within like 5 minutes, I got a reply back from the individual, and Rob, I could the email alone that I received back from this guy. I'm just like, I called the office, and I'm like, I want you to lock the doors in the office when you're in the office, and I want you to inform the front desk that just make them aware. There was no threat.
Yeah.
There was no indirect threat, but it was like, made my hair stand up on the back of my neck a little bit. Um, and so, I'm having this discussion with Barry, and I'm like, he's like, you know, we have to be careful. He says we have to be careful in making sure that if people are going to react, because people are super super sensitive right now, and
Yeah.
there could all of a sudden, what happens is someone sends me an email and says, I don't like this Black Lives Matters podcast, or I don't like this right wing conservative podcast, or I'm going to do a protest against you because. And so we internally, we already have a terms of service that we're now working on a document that gives specific case by case guidelines on when we will cancel an account, um, because again, if you're not, again, it's that fine line, right? We're purveyors
Well,
of
it
free
is, and it's
speech.
also
Go ahead.
we don't always know that these programs exist on our
Right,
platforms
right,
either. I
right.
mean, that I mean, there's thousands of shows on our
Yeah,
platform, and that's and I wanted to talk about that point too of how, from what I've seen, even the shows that I had to do this week have been hopping around.
Right.
They've been at Libsyn, they've been with us. I don't know if they've been with you guys, but they've been hopping around, and I don't know that any of us have been like taking down any of these shows because it hasn't been an issue that's been pointed out to us, because
No.
that's typically how this stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
I got a message on Twitter from a particular person who was um, identifying these programs. I know it happened to Rob Walsh too,
Us too.
and
Yep.
me, and yeah, and it just points it out, and it's like, well, when somebody points it out, you go look, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how this stuff happened. It wasn't because we saw what happened in Charlottesville, and we started searching our database looking for hate group podcasts. Now I could spend all day doing that.
Yeah.
Um,
How do you
this
find
was
how do you find one out of 400,000 and they're not named like like
Yeah.
kill people. It's not how their shows are named.
Yeah, and that's another aspect of this, is that the metadata that they use in these programs is very kind of, you can tell they're trying to hide it, right?
Right, right.
Um, because of the words that they use, liberty and protection of our civil rights and that type of wording. And then when you get into the content, it's like they're talking about, you know, killing people,
Right.
killing a certain racial group,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like, okay, guys, we understand what's going on, but the other frightening part about this is that the program that I specifically referring to here had fairly good, I mean, really kind of large numbers of listens. I mean, like close to 300,000 plays on the sticker platform, and
I
hundreds of thousands of downloads and stuff like that. But I couldn't find them in iTunes, so I think Apple may have taken these guys down too. So you know, this is a this is an issue that raised all sorts of questions, and we were very, very thoughtful about what we were doing, just like you, Todd. We
Yeah.
were weighing it, but I'll tell you, us being kind of a European company, the people on the other side of the ocean in this company were pretty, I'm gonna say, pretty tough on this topic.
Of course.
I think the Europeans are much more sensitive to this
Mm-hmm.
stuff than even we are,
Yeah.
because of what they've been through. And that message was very clear to me. I mean, if you look at this from a European perspective, and let's be honest with you,
Oh,
that's where
Rob, come
a
on.
lot of this hate
If you look at it from an
came
American
came from.
perspective, when you're talking about
No,
killing
no,
people,
I agree. No, I agree. I mean, I'm not doing
yeah.
some sort of moral
Right, 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 right,
equivalency
right,
here.
right,
I'm
right, right.
just saying that it's not just us here in the U.S. And I think that's something that we need to think about too. Is like, we have to really put this down. We have to stop this from taking over our country, because you know we did have a civil war,
Well, let's
and
let's also put some
that's pretty
perspective.
scary stuff.
Let's put this in
Yeah.
some perspective too. It is a very, very small, tiny minority, but at the same point, um, it is eye opening. But I
Well,
think,
Todd, from the listenership numbers that I saw,
but
there's a
Rob,
lot of people listening to this stuff. Yeah.
but we're a country of what, almost 300 million people.
Yeah.
So in 99.9%, I would, and some people are going to argue with me that's wrong. Let's say 99% of the people in the United States are probably
Yeah.
want to puke in their mouth when they hear this type of rhetoric and discussion. I think from our standpoint, it's pretty clear. You talk about doing violence, or you talk about hurting someone, or invoking violence. You're gone. That's
Yeah.
just, if you are a um, if you are of that ilk and you have the ability to talk without invoking um, violence, then there's that fine line.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
do you kill a show or cancel a show if they are not invoking. But sometimes, some of the shows, how do you not talk about that without invoking hate or violence? It's again, it's this gray area that is the EFF came out with a post, and I was kind of surprised about this post from the EFF, and they're like, I like what GoDaddy did. I said, we don't want you as a customer. And to the point of like, your domain is no longer welcome here, not just your hosting account. Your domain is not welcome here. Google actually locked the domain of one of the offending sites. The owner of that domain, as much as we all do not agree with what they said, now is locked out of that account. So the question that EFF was, should Google have the power to do that? Number one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're an upper level tiered domain provider. Should they have the ability to take someone's domain and lock them out without, some sort of legal action? They just basically said it's ours. So Rob, what happens if, and this is something we have to look at, and this is the piece the EFF said. Should Google have the right, or GoDaddy have the right, to say your domain can no longer be associated, even though, let's say, they don't have any hosting account with this? The internet is a fundamental right in the United States, free speech, whatever. Again, you may not like it, but just if, let's say, someone is invoking hate and violence, you would hope no hosting company would host that website. And that website in question is getting ready to go to the dark web because no one will. But the question, and even Russia even canceled their account, canceled their new domain. But, do those upper level companies have the ability to just take those domains and freeze them? I don't know. And that's the question that the EFF is asking. But at the same point, I agree with the EFF that companies like ours need to have clear and concise guidelines on when a show has crossed the line and when we should terminate it. We are protected by Safe Harbors Act. And if those of you that don't know what that means, is that if you on your show say something that violates copyright, or, I'm not there to police your content. Now, like Rob, we were informed, and I actually went looking for those other two shows. But if you were informed that you have a problem, you have to react to that. But then you have to make a decision whether or not that show is actually violated a terms of service or not. So, for our standpoint, and let me be very clear, as a podcast hosting provider, I absolutely, unequivocally support freedom of speech. But if you cross the line and go into hate and violence, as far as our company, you're gone. You're out of there. I don't care if you're right, left, middle, green, blue, purple, whatever. We're not gonna do business with you. But then again,
that's been our position as well. I mean, it's pretty clear cut. I mean, but I agree with you, Todd. I think this is a slippery slope. I don't know that I entirely agreed with the EFF's kind of comment that this is a slippery slope into other things.
I think
I think it's clearly
it very well could be. That's the point they're making. So
I suppose it could be, but I think everybody's pretty well just focused on this particular issue, right?
Yeah.
It's the hate speech, it's the violence, it's the that's pretty much what it is. I mean, pretty much anybody can do just about anything else,
right.
in their podcast,
Yeah.
except for these things.
So, in the chat room, Matt says, censorship in the wrong hands will destroy democracy and free speech. Also, when evil is in light, you can at least know to avoid it. And then Michael says, who decides? This therein lays the dilemma, gents and ladies. This where the problem lies.
Yeah.
And this is, and we're going to have a big internal discussion about this. So, I have, um, just for the record, I've had to react on 4 shows, and I don't know if there's more. I haven't. If we're brought to light, we'll look at them. But when someone says in Twitter, "Hey, by the way, you're hosting this this particular show," and boycott this company without even giving us a chance to respond, they don't. Again, like you, I got 400,000 shows on the network. I got 75,000
Yeah.
customers. You know,
Yeah.
how can I know every piece of content that's on the website? I don't. You know,
Yeah.
and but
It's impossible.
it's
Yeah.
impossible. So, but one person did send me on Facebook Messenger, at least gave me a heads up privately. Hey, you want to look at this one, you know? And this guy was only using stats, but because it had Blueberry in the link,
Hmm.
we're probably going to have a press release out about this next week. We're going to talk about it a little bit, in but internally, we're going to have a very, we have to at this point. We have to have a extensive policy, and again, just like Matt said, who decides? Or Michael said, who decides? And what my level of tolerance Rob, could be different than what your level of tolerance is. What you decide is hate could be different than what I decide is hate, because there's a fine line between opinion. If someone says something, it's their opinion and they're talking about stuff. So how do you determine when a person is actually doing hate speech? It's that's just that could be interpreted 5,000 different ways.
Yeah. It can, but I think most people know when it goes over that line, right? I mean,
Well, do they?
um,
Do they?
yeah, I
Yeah.
would say so. I mean,
Yeah.
it's sometimes pretty clear in the content. Um, it just, I agree with you. This line can be walked very
Mm.
carefully, but my experience is that they don't typically walk it very well.
Right.
they they tend to be overly enthusiastic. Is might be a nice way of saying it.
Mm, a-
Um,
And Matt says you have the right to
you know,
protect public perception of your brand. It's your company. That's true. It is. But
yeah, no, that's exactly. I mean, that's part of it.
right.
Totally, is that we're concerned about people pointing us out as as basically
Supporting.
enabling,
Right. Right.
you know, really enabling this type of content to
Mm-hmm.
be distributed when it's viewed so poorly by so many,
Right.
um, and can be hurtful to others.
Yeah.
I think is the big thing that we all have to stay focused on is the reason for this.
But
There's certainly plenty of other topics that people can talk about that we're not going to interfere with. This is just one of those that crosses a very dangerous line.
there's also been not only let's just be frank though. These aren't the same folks. These are not the only folks that come very, very close in their rhetoric to
Yeah,
talking hate speech too. It goes the other
that's
way,
true.
So
There are shows about Al Qaeda and other extremist groups too. I mean, if you think about those as well, yeah,
and and then there is even shows that talk about what you got these white supremacist groups. They're talking about the suppression of and violence on on black people and white. I mean on and Jewish people. Then you've got the other side where they're talking about hating the white guy, and so it's. I mean it's there is where's the
yeah,
line? Where's the
yeah,
line?
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And I guess we're. I mean, once we start going down this path, what is our long term responsibility here? That's the other part that the more I think about it, the more I'm concerned about is that now that we've done this to this group, how do we not do it to some other group that is doing the same type of thing, right?
exactly. Therein
And
lies
do
the
we
issue.
have to be, yeah, and do we have to have kind of like a review process of all the content on our platform to be fair to everyone? I don't, well, that's probably backwards way of approaching that. Not so much fair to everybody, but to be consistent, right?
I think until
Um,
someone, this is no way possible to go and do a review of all the content. I would
yeah,
need a team of 50 and
yeah, and yeah, exactly. And most of the companies that have these platforms just don't have the resources to do that. So we're going to be all dependent on
the public.
you,
Yeah.
the listener, to let us know when these sites come up, and I don't know how you find out.
Here's
You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
herein lies the problem. What if someone has a vendetta against a group and they find one specific episode, one specific 5-second spot where someone says something,
yeah,
and the rest of the show is largely opinion. What do you do then? Do you kill that episode, or it's really I don't like it. It's a slippery slope, and I'm going to be very, as I've said this many times. I may not like what you say whatsoever, but you have the right to say it. Now, again, hate and
yeah.
violence.
It's a whole other thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then one person's death. I really think the hate part is the hard part. The violence is easy. That's someone invokes violence. That's easy to detect. It's the hate part that is, I think, hard. I you know I
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, but in these cases there was no issue. The content was like, it
Well,
was like, whoa, 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 and
yeah, yeah. And
this.
I've had situations too, and I don't know if this gets talked about very much either. Is that sometimes there's disputes that come up between co-hosts
Yeah, all the
on
time.
podcasts too. I don't know
Yeah.
if you, yeah, have you been through that as well, where one will be trying to uh, cut out the access, or there's some sort of dispute going on between them, and the one co-host is trying to take over the show from the other co-hosts,
Yep.
and it drags in the platform where they want us to change the access to the podcast because uh, they're having an issue with a co-host or something like that. I mean, that's
Yep.
come up a few times over the last couple of years
Yeah.
too.
The chat
And
rooms the chat rooms alive. Some people think disagreeing is hate. Tim says this is a slippery slope. After all, isn't podcasting the frontier of free speech? Kirk says you're entitled to hear an opinion. However, when it comes to invoking violence against someone or people at large, is entirely wrong. So it's like, yeah, it is,
yeah,
Tim. It is absolutely a slippery slope. It is absolutely a slippery slope. But at the same point, um, if I say on my show that I am going to kill a bunch of people, um, in many jurisdictions, that's actually illegal to say. You can be arrested. Um,
you just can't do it, right? Yeah,
well, you
yeah,
both. You're going to get
obviously.
yeah. But if you're going to say that on my platform, I'm going to tell you wholeheartedly, You're not going to be on my platform any longer.
Yeah, yeah,
And we're very, very clear, and it's race, religion, everything in our terms of service, we do not.
yeah. Well, I mean, Todd, just because freedom of speech exists for these things doesn't mean we run private platforms.
Right.
We have a legal right to have a say in what's on our platform
That's right.
as a way of protecting our
Yep.
businesses.
Yep.
And that's, I always try and point that out to any takedown
Yep.
notices, that we have a right
Yep.
to determine um, what we want to be associated with, and
That's that's true.
that's the bottom line.
And we have an
And
unequivocal right to terminate anyone really for anything at any time.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
now I wouldn't, that would be
yeah, yeah, yeah.
business
Well, it's
suicide.
bad for business, right? That's bad for business.
Right.
So, I mean,
Uh,
I don't necessarily. I think theoretically, I think the slippery slope concept is true, but in this case, I would say it's not, because both of us are very, I guess, very pro, independent podcaster, freedom
absolutely.
of speech.
Yep. Yep.
We've always been that way,
Yeah.
and I've, I've worked at big corporations before, like Microsoft, and I've faced these issues with shows over the years in other situations. And I'll tell you, my personal thought is certainly a lot more open to other types of speech than these big major corporations.
Right.
They're much more restrictive. I remember getting a list from I think it was it was a big radio network. I'm not going to name the network, but the biggest radio distribution network in the world, and everybody knows who that is, but I don't necessarily want to say it. I got a list from them of all of the words that were not allowed in
Wow.
a podcast that was on their platform.
Wow.
So, I mean, it was like a list of like 40 words, and it's the same. It's really not. I mean, if you really want to take it back to like the FCC, look at television, look at
Hmm.
radio. They have restrictions on using certain words. I mean,
But
and
radio and radio
these
and
aren't hate words. These
radio,
are
radio and
just
television operate in the public domain underneath a
yeah,
license from the uh,
FCC.
FCC, and
Yep.
they work in they are the broadcast guys are beholden to follow those rules. The digital, that's why cable became so popular, because they weren't no longer responsible to the FCC. They did not need a license to run in cable
Yeah.
because it was a private network. So,
Yeah.
and that's why you had the Playboy channel. That's why you had all these other things that came up in cable. They weren't over broadcast. They didn't work in the public domain.
Yeah.
But you're right, being that we're private companies, um, again, it's we have to be. I still, I think everyone that's listening to this understand where we're coming from. But when
Yeah.
you're mentioned
Yeah.
on a hate group's website as a company that they call us out, that we have been canceled by da 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 ba 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 ba, and when that's exposed to these
Well,
large number of individuals that think this way, it's of concern. Thus my comments about locking the office door.
and a lot of, I mean, I've went to the websites where this stuff is, and they're embedding our web players. Like
Right, yeah, and your brand is there.
Spreaker's web players on their website, right next to and inside these just hateful posts. I mean, a lot of these websites are still active,
Yeah, yeah.
but I have noticed that if you go through and you click through all of the links to their social media properties and like SoundCloud and YouTube,
They're gone.
they're gone. So it's like you know I'm like the last one to take these guys down, not the first one to take these guys down. So that's a little bit of a confirmation to me that it's the you know I don't want to be the only one that didn't take these guys
Right,
down.
right. Oh, and there was no question that the content was coming down. Let's just be clear that
Yeah.
that specific content, there was no question. It was the afterthought of, okay, what happens when I get someone on Twitter that is complaining about a specific group that is really outspoken, but they're not invoking hate or violence, and they're not disparaging. What do we do then? What are the guidelines? How do I actually make a determination one way or the other? So, thus, the process that we're going to go through, and Barry and I are both, again, I think, Rob, as you've said it, big purveyors of free speech. Um, we don't want to take a showdown because someone has complained, um, just because they don't agree with their opinion. And I mean, very careful, very stringent in saying that opinion. Um, and we get takedown notices for episodes all the time. Companies say, I don't like what this person said about my company. I don't like what this person said about me. And you go and listen to the show, and the guy isn't. He's saying, well, I don't like this product because of this, or this individual, he scammed me, and this is what happened to me, and this is my opinion. So that doesn't necessarily invoke a takedown notice. If this guy wants to sue that guy, that's his decision. But
Yeah.
I'm not taking content down. Um,
Well, well, Todd, I don't know if you do, but we certainly have clauses in our TOS around slander
oh,
and all sorts of things. And I don't think I've ever taken a show down for slander.
never. I've never taken a
Um,
show down for slander.
yeah. So there's even things in our TOS that we don't really enforce, and because it's so difficult to
I
do
don't.
that
I
kind
don't
of
think I
thing.
have a clause for slander, per se, in
Really?
my terms of
Okay.
service. I don't think
If you
so.
read through, I mean, most of the TOSs are pretty boilerplate these days.
Yeah.
They'll list. I could pull it up here and read through each of the things um,
But Rob,
that that
I,
is in there, but most of them we don't really enforce. So I'll be honest with you,
you know,
most of them I don't even think about.
so
So
here's I can say I have an opinion that company XYZ is horrible. Okay, I can say that. The
yeah,
difference is if I say company XYZ is horrible. There's a big difference legally to say it the two different ways. In my
yeah,
opinion, everyone has an opinion. You're allowed to have opinion, but when you state something, that
as fact.
as fact, oh boy, you better be factual because you're going to go to court have to prove that, and that's where
Hmm.
slander and this comes in. So you may still get sued by having an opinion, but you have stand a much better case. If a judge asks you, I said that's my opinion, judge. I think they're horrible. You can have an opinion, okay?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's
Uh,
true.
but oh man, it's yeah. So there's nothing. You get that email or that text or that Twitter announcement, and you're just like, ah, because you're in for a ride.
Okay, Todd, I was gonna read the exact wording of the terms of service, and this is pretty boilerplate. It's the same thing that Microsoft had when I was there. Chances are, Barry on your side probably put this into yours as well. It says um, material that is unlawful, defamatory, libelous, slanderous, threatening, pornographic, obscene, vulgar, harassing, harmful, hateful, and abusive, racially and ethnically, offensive, or is otherwise inappropriate. Now, that's a pretty big
That's
door.
that's that's broad.
Yeah, it's pretty broad. So that gives you a lot of leeway that you can judge. But I would say that the vast majority of anything that's really ever taken action on, and that's the unlawful part. Copyright,
Yeah, yeah,
infringement is
yeah.
probably one of the biggest ones that we all have to enforce. Um, and threatening is probably one. Pornographic, I don't know that I've ever really enforced that tremendously.
We
Obscene,
we don't have that in our terms
I
of
don't know
service.
about that.
If you want
Yeah,
if you want to do an
yeah,
adult audio podcast, knock yourself out.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Vulgar is probably, that's never really enforced either. Harassing, yeah, you're starting to get into that territory of harassing. Harmful, that's kind of another broad term that's tough to enforce,
Yeah.
but does follow in the line of harassment and being abusive. So hateful, obviously, that's the big bucket item that we're dealing with right now, and then the abusive and racially and the ethnically, offensive. So those three words are probably the ones that we focused on the most for this particular issue, and clearly these shows cross those lines. And I think we're all probably extra specially sensitive to it right now because of what has happened. That's the honest truth. All people wouldn't have pointed it out to us because these shows, this particular show that I'm talking about, has only been around since June, which I thought was really interesting.
So again, Rob,
Um,
slippery slope because when the shoe's on the other foot,
yeah,
someone says here, what if they're using Blueberry and he has an opinion, no violent speech, then on Twitter the speech turns to violent speech. Now what? Oh, good good point. I don't know. Be honest with you, I don't know. That would have to go to the legal. I'd
Yeah.
have to say what do we do? I, I don't know at
Well,
this
and it
point.
says, yeah, I don't either. And it says here that these these things are especially something that we take a look at if they could damage Spreaker or any
Right.
third party. That's the key linkage here.
Yeah.
That's that's really behind all this stuff. Is
Yeah.
that being associated with this content could be damaging to our company,
Right.
and it could be damaging or hurtful to some other party.
Yep.
And that's the part of the glue that glues these things together for us.
The
And
long short of it
yeah,
is I'm a private company. I can do business with who I want. If I want to cancel someone's
yeah,
service because I don't like them, I can do that. But I have to be cognizant that if I
yeah.
do that in the arbitrarily, I may not have a business no more.
And I gave I was told by many that I talked to about this that I was being very nice about this. But I gave these folks a 24 hour notice.
Oh, I didn't.
I sent multiple emails to them trying to let them know, and I actually, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I captured all their episodes. I have them on a flash drive, and I captured the all the metadata from each of their episodes. So I have a copy of all that stuff.
Probably from a legal perspective, it's smart to have that anyway.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is so you can prove it. Um,
Right.
yeah,
Well,
because once they're down, they're down.
I didn't have anybody actually hosting media, so I didn't have to worry about media. It was just a stats accounts, and then 3 shows that were on the directory, 3 that were unclaimed, one that
Yeah,
was actually a physical paying customer. So I didn't have to go to the extent you did, and I don't know what I would have done. We would have had to talk about it if we had to take content down. But anyway, it's and some people, I'm sure, they're going to listen to this. They're going to be like, "Why are you even debating this?"
I
You
know
just,
exactly.
they're going to
I
say, "You
mean,
should just take
that
this.
was the feedback that I got too. Yeah,
Why are you even
you're
debating?
being too nice.
Right? Why are you even debating
Yeah,
this?" And
yeah,
again,
exactly.
I go back to what I said at the beginning of the show. And for those of you that weren't here, I believe in the freedom of speech, and I may not like what you say, but you're allowed to say it so long as it doesn't invoke hate or violence.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And I
anyway,
think I mean, Todd, I think we both really respect the kind of the power that we have in this, and I want to be as fair to everyone as possible. And I don't, I
and,
think
and
the feedback.
Daniel
Yeah,
has a good point here. The unfortunate thing is that many people will drive inconsistent lines. Hold that policy against different groups, and you'll face hellfire. It's true. It is true.
yeah,
I absolutely agree. But at the same point, if someone says here's a show that is invoking hate or violence, it's a slippery slope.
yeah. Well, yeah,
It's a slippery slope.
can be, but it's not going to be for me. I mean, this is one show for us.
Yeah, yeah. So far, one that was a customer.
And I know that on
Yeah,
the same
makes me tired.
website, on the same website was another show that wasn't hosted on our platform. But that
So
other hosting platform, I'm not going to say, is still going through their legal review process right now. So
wow,
yeah,
it's something that we've never had to deal with before. I'll be honest, this is the first time this has come up for us, and for
yeah, I
being
haven't. Yeah, I
being
haven't ever taken down a hate speech
no
podcast
for the
before.
first, and it just so now we're going to come up with a more detailed policy, and we'll have something in place, and it'll be crystal clear. And now if I have to look at my terms of service, I will. But um, yeah, It is what it is, and it sucks to be honest with you. But
Yeah.
anyway, and I'd love to hear your comments on this because everyone's going to have varying opinions. Very,
Yeah.
very, varying opinions on this. But
Yeah. Yeah. Especially the folks that are creating this content, right?
yeah, and it just fair warning when the shoe's on the other foot. You know, equal. And again, it's when I mean when it's another group, and the next group that's under focus. And
Yeah.
typically the focus becomes on groups that are controversial. You know, so. But
Yeah.
I will admit that
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the Vice video, but I saw the Vice video actually sent a chill down my spine. And here's let me be frank, and I've lived all over the country, and I've traveled throughout the world, and here in Hawaii, my God, it's the Rainbow State, right? Very inclusive.
Hmm.
It's eh, eh, there are biases no matter where you're at. Let's be honest. But you don't see outright just people in the streets, or people walking around with hoods on their heads, that kind of thing. Um, but to see that Vice video was pretty eye opening to me. It really
Yeah.
was. And again, this is we're 300. What is just can someone Google what is the population of the United States? Again, this is a small percentage of people, but because they're so out there, because they're so vocal and the things they're saying are so repulsive, that gets big national headlines. It's big news. And as I've always said, the best thing about this, well, not the best thing, you can fight speech with speech. So if this is something driving you absolutely crazy, start a podcast and talk about these groups and people, and give an alternate opinion. And that's the beauty of podcasting. You can pick up a mic and do this
But
yourself.
don't threaten them.
No, no. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I mean, because it can go on the other side too. The response to these folks could create the same type of thing, going the other way.
right,
So
right,
it's
right.
that's that's what I think the slippery slope is. Is this gets so extreme that
Yeah,
it creates a reaction on the opposite side,
that's right.
and that's when we really get into a problem.
That's right.
Um,
But if
is
the
when
if
two
the
sides, and that's what we saw in Charlotte. I believe.
so
Um,
when you have so if it goes the other way, and people are going to have to understand that if you're invoking hate or violence upon another group, even though you may think they're the worst things on the planet, uh, you're going to go too. So it's I don't know. It's weird.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
would hope that calmer heads would prevail. I don't know. Again, slippery slope, and we'll have to deal with it case by case as it comes up. And
Yep.
all right, any more comments from the? Tim says 308 million people in this country,
I thought it
and
was higher than that. I thought it was higher than that.
in the
I thought it
United
was more
States. I guess that was probably the last
330. Yeah.
last census. I'm
But
sure it's more, but again, and what did they? I don't know how many. Let's say they had 1,000 people at their rally. I don't know if they had that many. Um, definitely
it's a small percentage.
definitely 1,000 people that were on the oh my god category. You've got to be kidding me. So
Well, Todd, I've heard people say that there's about 500,000 people in this country that are considered to be white supremacists or neo Nazis or whatever. That's the estimate. And I can tell you from the stats numbers I saw, the people that are listening to that content, it was in the 300,000 range. Um, so I, each of these shows, and I don't know that there's a lot of these shows. I mean,
Yeah.
it could be that there's only a handful of them. I mean, I think I've only heard of like maybe four, three or four so far. So it's not a big group of shows that we're talking about here.
But if you
But
still
those shows are reaching big audiences, though.
so if you think about 500,000 countrywide, divide that by 50 states, it's still 10,000 people per state. That's even to me is like it's like makes my eyeballs bulge a little bit. Really? You know, I just wow.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
wow,
And
wow.
they're and are they carrying semi-automatic weapons around with them too? Right?
Well, the majority of the country is well, the majority of the country is caring. So you know, white supremacist or not.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's true. I don't I don't necessarily think that's a comforting thought, though. But
Well,
yeah,
anyway, so we're not going to get into the gun issue
no,
here.
no, we're not.
Let's talk about something that's definitely more pleasing to the mind. Next week is a big week, and
Yes, it is. Podcast movement
so
kicks off, and we're all scrambling to try and get get ready for it. You know, especially those of us that are presenting and creating content down there. Yeah.
my presentation is ready. I reduced it from. Let me see how many slides I ended up with. I ended up with 32 slides, and probably be 34, 35 before I'm done. And all I've got to do is add some pictures, and I went down from 55. So I think I'm gonna be able to get my point across in 32 slides, and
Todd's gonna be doing this pretty fast to get through that in 45 minutes and still
well,
take questions.
it's but you know most of my slides are one line, just a single.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so that's how I do my slides, and some of them are sequential where they come back to the same. This is a little different presentation for me. I've never given this particular one. This is a one I've been thinking about for 6 months. So, um, and here's the funny thing: any of you going to podcast movement, I'm doing at least one of my primary session is proven social media strategies for podcasters. No, I am not teaching you how to tweet. Okay, so it's the key word there is strategies. All right.
It's not
Uh,
tweet 101. Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no, you want to do that, that's we're not doing that. That's not what we're getting. The key word there is strategies.
Strategies. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and then Rob, I know we're doing and I still have to get your slides ready. That's something I haven't gotten ready yet. So Andrew will pull those out of his Okoli probably on Monday for you. So we'll have some
Okay.
late to the game here on that one. But
Okay. All right.
uh, and then what else? What else are? So we're doing the you and I are doing the state of the podcasting space with Rob Walsh, Ming Young Fogarty, um,
Tom
and Todd
Webster.
Webster. Are you doing any other sessions?
Yeah, I'm doing I'm moderating a panel on geo-local podcasting.
Oh, okay. That's
So
your little niche
local.
thing right now, yeah.
Yeah, well, I've been pushing on that. It's the hybrid between really in some ways it brings into play the conversation of local radio. So how does local radio and local podcasting kind of play together as you look to the future? And that's the idea is what does local radio need to do to be a more appealing local podcast creator, and what can local companies or local content creators do in a given market city to uh, basically achieve success in creating a locally focused podcast. So I think it's kind of the could be a little bit of the future of this medium as you look at the adoption curve of podcasting continuing to grow. More and more people in local markets, obviously, are listening to podcasts. So maybe they'll have an interest in a program that's sourced locally. So that's topic of it, and it seems to be something that more and more people agree with. That's a major trend line in the podcasting space, especially as local radio really starts to embrace podcasting.
But a lot of excitement. Everyone's packing up to go. I know some people are going early and doing Disneyland beforehand. I'm kind of Disneyland out, so I'm
Yeah, I'm not going to go there too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm flying the red eye out Monday night. I get in the hotel at 5 a.m. My hotel room will have already been checked into, so I'll get in and combat nap to maybe about 9 a.m. and then rock and roll. Be ready to go hot and heavy. Time to get in.
And Todd, I'm also doing two
Oh,
sessions with Rocky Thomas too, um, around um, dynamic ad insertion. So I'm going to be co-presenting with her for two sessions on that. And then
wow. Two
obviously
sessions on that? Holy cow.
yeah. Well, there's one. It's a 101 session about the basics, and then 201 is the session. It's on the Q&A stage.
Oh,
So
okay, okay.
it's more talking about the kind of the mechanics of it,
I
how
got
it
you.
works. Yeah,
Well, make
because I
sure.
think it's a hot topic in the podcasting space right now. I
Well,
think
make sure you get my point in about most podcasters don't need it because their content expires in 96 hours. Go ahead and drop that turd
yeah,
on the stage.
well, yeah, there you go. That is a big brown one, Todd. No, just kidding. Um,
Well, Rocky won't want you to say that, That goes against, let's be honest, most shows do not need that. So,
but I have heard some interesting commentary from some people talking about dynamic ad insertion and just advertising in general. Is that some people feel that some shows have adopted pretty heavy ad loads
yeah,
in their content,
yeah.
and they haven't seen a fall off in audience. So it's kind of an interesting little paradigm
I
there that maybe is a little contrary to popular belief.
Well, do they
You know.
know that they haven't dropped off or they're not gaining more? Because I know of at least one, well, I know one network that's doing 5 ads a show, 2 pre-rolls, 1 mid-roll, 2 post-roll. Or maybe 2 pre-rolls, 2 mid-rolls, and 1 post-roll.
Yeah,
So that's a
post
heavy
roll.
that's a
Well, that's a
heavy
waste of time.
that's a heavy load. You know, you do
Yeah,
2 ads before the content starts, 2 ads during the content. That's a lot. That's like radio.
yeah, yeah. Well, not quite as bad as radio,
Well,
but
close.
you're talk, you're talking. If you're talking about radio in comparison, it's more like 15 spots per hour.
Right.
Yeah. So, but it's yeah. I mean, it's interesting how if that is the case, Todd, that with many shows, and that it's difficult to make a generalization about this. That and I did see this a little bit when I was working on kind of these dynamic ad insertion platforms. In a prior employer that I had, that some shows, like you said, would have 3 to 5 spots. Some of them would be like promos, also,
Mm-hmm.
cross promotional promos. Um, and from what I saw, the audiences were still strong. I mean, I guess it depends on the strength of the program and how accustomed the audience is to hearing ads in the content. I think a lot of podcasters start up, they don't have any ads, any promotions, they build a big audience, and then they start putting in a bunch of ads, and it changes the dynamic of the program, and the expectation has already been set. Um, that this isn't going to have advertising in it in a heavy way. I think most people will accept a certain amount of advertising just because they realize the show needs to have some financial support. Um, but to have it go, 5 or 6 spots, I think is a big leap, and you probably can't go from no spots to 5 or 6 spots without creating a shock in your audience.
In the early days, obviously, and being one of the first shows to put advertising in my show, I had told the audience up front. They knew from episode 1 or maybe episode 5 or 6 what the end goal was. They knew ads were coming. So
Yeah,
It was just a matter of finding an advertiser to begin with. So for me, it wasn't a matter of fact, it was a welcome relief because I was able to tell the audience we're going to be here beyond 2 years. Because
And you could tell your wife that it was going to work out.
right, because that's what I mean. Because she'd give me the 2 year counter. She said, "This thing, if this thing isn't paying for itself
Right.
in 2 years, you're done." And it's like, ooh, I got a GoDaddy never called it. There may not even this conversation may not even ever we wouldn't be having this conversation, Rob.
Yeah, in Blueberry wouldn't exist,
Right, right.
and the PowerPress plugin wouldn't
It's
exist, and
that's
yeah.
right. It's the matter of fate there. So, and for those of you that don't know the story, my wife and I came home from Texas after having done 4 or 5 episodes and was all excited about podcasting and had the fever and she's like looking at me like, "Is this another boat anchor?"
Really, Todd?
Really, this is your next scheme. Because I had a bulletin board for years that never paid nothing. Give me another, Benjamin Franklin every 2 weeks. And it was, yeah.
Todd, it's not another multi-level marketing scheme, right?
No, I didn't do it. I was actually successful as a multi-level marketer in my early days, but
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
this is a topic we haven't talked on this show before.
You can be successful at anything as long as you apply yourself with vigor.
That's
So,
true. That's true.
and that's the key.
Agreed.
You have to live,
It
breathe it.
is.
You have to live and breathe it.
And
And
you do live and breathe podcasting, no question about it.
oh man, it's yeah, a little too much sometimes. But no,
Hey, Todd, we didn't really get a chance to talk. Did we talk about the podcast awards?
I don't know if we
I don't
did.
know that we did.
The
I don't know that we did.
the
Yeah.
slate has been announced. And had an interesting happen. Making the slate, you get a free year of exposure on the website. So making the slate's a big deal.
Yeah.
Audiences, came in and nominated the show, and I had a show that I sent a mailing to all of them and said, "Listen, this is what I need from you. I need a video. Every one of you need to do just like imagine that your name has been called at the Oscars and you are doing your acceptance speech. I need a 90-second video, not a second longer, by this date." And I noticed
Yeah.
from that email, one person unsubscribed from the mailing list. So I was like, what's the deal there? Because I told him this is why I'm going to be contacting you, my primary connection point. So I emailed the podcaster and I said, "Hey, I'm like, this is how you're going to get your trophy information, all this stuff if you win." And I said, "What's the problem?" He says, and the guy, I won't go into what the email said, but he says, "Take me off the slate." I'm like, "What? What? Take me off the slate?" And he's like, "Yeah, take me off the slate. I don't want to participate." And I, I, I was like, I've never had this happen in the entire time we do it. So one show that was in the tech category, and I'm not going to say who if people weren't paying attention, because I don't want to. The person that was 11 moved into the 10th spot, and um, so someone got a buy basically on because this is what I did in the rules this year. You don't submit a video to me, and we made it real easy for them. You don't submit an acceptance speech video, and you win, you forfeit. So
Huh.
that's the way it is. All 200 shows have to submit an acceptance video. I'm not going to tell them they won ahead of time. And we're going to do the production on, because how many times we've done the podcast awards ceremony where we announce a name
Yeah.
and crickets.
And nobody shows up.
And I got a box full,
Yeah.
literally a box full of trophies from shows that have never. I've got enough trophies here to give. I probably got 20 unclaimed trophies, mostly from the NPR groups. Those folks never. We tried to reach out to them. I did everything in my power to try to contact them to get them their trophy. So I said this year, if you went through this whole process, put your name in the hat, you had to pay to register your show to begin with, $10 to register. If you don't submit the video and you win, I'm sorry, you forfeit. I'll give it to number two.
So
And
is that the reason that this particular show dropped out? Is it just over a video, or is that just a guess?
I won't say, but
Okay.
in long story short, someone got a pass. So no one else. Everyone else is, on Twitter and Facebook, and I we go through a lot of work. There's a team this year that has been working on this, and the website has been fabulous. The bill is I'm about ready to get the bill for it, and
Yeah, I was going to say that the website looks really nice.
so
I like the way it was laid out.
and
Yeah.
all the tools behind hand have worked, and we haven't had too many little, I have a couple minor issues, but this thing will carry us for another 5-6 years easy. There's some things we want to do a follow-on year on the. I'll do another budget next year, and we'll do some improvements. But um, the voting's going on now, so this is the key point. Are all 333 people going to vote? So at about day 15 of the voting, and I've got a backup list of folks because I need at least that many people to have voted the entire stack. And if we get to day 15 and we're not getting all the people that said they were going to vote, then I'm going to start bringing in alternates to allow them to vote too, because I have to have a big enough voting sample to, we figured 300 it was the minimum number we needed to determine, because it used to be it was open voting, you could vote every day, and a lot of people didn't like that.
Yeah.
So we'll see in the future year if we're going to adjust that or not. But so we'll see. But anyway, it's a good list of shows. Really good list, and so we'll see.
Yeah.
But anyway, the website. Let me see if I've got it. Yeah. And we made it so that people could subscribe via iTunes or Android. Got their RSS feed up there and a link to their website as well. So
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
some shows were like, "What's this Android thing?" I'm like, "Well, click on it with your mobile phone."
What's this Android thing? You can listen on Android? Really?
Wow,
No.
that's possible. But the awards will be on the International Podcast Day. We're still trying to determine a time. Dave and the team and I will talk about that at Podcast Movement, figure out what segment they're going to give us. And because we're limited in time, I have to be able to get in and get out. So I will basically have a media file that will just click play, and it will play the awards. It'll be all pre-produced, and it'll be live to, have been live to tape, I guess is a better word. So maybe some near future we'll be able to actually have a live event. Again,
Okay.
time will tell.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in the real world at some venue somewhere.
It's some
right?
venue somewhere, yeah. So this was a rebuild year, and we'll see how it goes.
We could always try and do it again at NAB.
Yeah, we haven't heard from the NAB folks recently, have we?
Actually, I heard from them. I'm going to be meeting up with, I think it's Megan from the NAB that's going to be at Podcast Movement.
Oh.
So she's going to come by my booth. So
Huh.
I'll drag her over to your booth too.
Yeah. So they yeah, I'd like to, because we're gonna have to start planning budget for them. That's a $20,000 bill. So they need to talk to us soon.
Yeah.
To do that.
And I think that's the idea, is they're still pulling their plans together. But yeah, I mean, I reached out to them maybe a week ago or so just to see what's up. We haven't heard from you guys in a while.
Yeah.
Just to see, whether or not we could get back on that conversation. But it sounds like they're aggressively moving forward with their plans. And I think what they're looking to do is just, kind of talk to us about what their plans are at this point.
Well, I hope they do like a little pavilion where we all can get a kiosk. It's a little more. It's not.
No, I think that's exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah, that's cool. So a little pavilion for us, and I don't know how many. I know that there's a number of us that have already kind of verbally committed. So Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that they're going to add a full day track to
Oh,
the radio
oh,
segment that's usually upstairs in the central hall, or in the
mm-hmm.
main area. Um, and then I think they're going to have a pavilion down there, so there's going to be another area for content.
But where
Like,
did you hear which
yeah.
hall we're gonna be in?
Uh, no, I did not.
To be in the if
No,
they
I
put
don't.
us in in North Hall is where the above North Hall is where all the rooms are. So
Yeah,
Central,
exactly. So my thinking is they would probably put us in the North Halls, where I
and
think they would probably put
I
us.
think audio's there too. So
Yes, that's where the microphone vendors are and that kind of stuff is in the North Hall.
all right, that hall typically gets. It's
It's
not
a
the best.
little less
It's not
traffic.
the best traffic hall,
Yeah.
but you have to be at NAB like 20 years to get to Central. I'm like,
Well, yeah, Central is full of all the big guys.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But they put live stream
So
over there
I don't.
last year, and there's
That's
some
true.
yeah some advantage
That's
to
true.
being to some of
Well,
those.
the more I think about it, were the microphones over in the Central Hall? I'm trying to remember.
Well, yeah,
Like Shure
I
and
think
Shure and those
if
guys.
we were in the front part of Central Hall, oh
Oh
man,
yeah, crowds upon crowds
crowds upon crowds. Yeah,
walking through that hallway entrance.
that's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
difference between sending 5 people and 2 people. If you're in Central Hall front, you send 5. If you're in North Hall, you send 2. Um,
yeah,
that because that's what you're going to need. You're going to need 5 people there just to cover the volume of
yeah,
traffic.
yeah.
So, well, we'll see what they come up with. That's cool. There, yeah, drag her over to see me, and
Well, Todd, we're bringing 5 people to Podcast Movement,
we'll have 4. Yeah. So,
so we're bringing in some stuff. Plus,
we'll
it
see
should be an
though.
interesting show, Todd.
Based on the separation of the yeah, we'll see how traffic is this year at the end
Yeah.
of. Yeah. Hey, did I tell you last show about these things I'm using? I'm just gaga over this. This is stupid little viral marketing thing I'm doing. Did I tell you about
Uh-uh.
Gems?
What's
Or
it called?
Gems, Gems, Gems. That's what they
No,
call
you
the
haven't.
devices. All right, and just hey, fair warning. This is a pitch, okay? Full
Todd, are you?
disclosure, this is a pitch.
Is this like our first ad on this show? Is that
Well,
what this is?
it could result in financial gain for me. I'm just telling everyone, but I just want to tell
Okay.
you what I've done, and people are rightfully so a little bit leery of these things. Android users, you're the ones affected. It's a little device. It's about they're in my car right now. They're about this big. They're a little bigger than a quarter, and they're stacked high. They're maybe 4 quarters, 5 quarters high, and it's a little plastic case, and you click on it, and a red light comes on. You click it on a green light, so it's on off, real simple. Like a real simple website that you go to, and you put a 40-character message with a corresponding HTTPS link. Has to be HTTPS. So what happens is if you get within 100 meters of my understanding, Android phones with Bluetooth turned on, that's the key, this device somehow sends that phone a message. And I don't know if it's how it's getting, and it's some shortcoming in the Android, whatever. I don't know how the magic happens. So it could be real spammy. You could really set it up to be like, it could be really, you could really do spammy messaging with it. Now, what I've done is I have some friends that have businesses here. I've worked with my sister with these. So I'm currently got 9 of these things out in 3 different states. And for example, my sister owns a laundromat. So what we did is she's real close to Main Thoroughfare. Is we got some how should we say Tupperware, and you guys know about geocaching, right? Well, we'd put a geocache somewhere where there's really no announced geocache. We hid this thing. and it's close to her business, real close to her business. So as people are driving by in their cars, ding, they get a little ding up. Hey, come check out such and such laundromat, and here's a link and their coupon code. So we've been using it there, and a couple of other places, some other businesses. Um,
So
and
are we talking about a form of a beacon here? Is that what we're talking
yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah, a little Bluetooth beacon that
Okay.
sends out a message. Again, 40 characters linked to an HD. They have to click on it to load a web page. Incredible, incredible response. I'm getting on average 60 reactions a day from these devices, and I'm already seeing foot traffic into retail locations because of it. Um,
So
it
where do you actually put them, off of roadways or
well,
something,
you're
or road
okay.
signs?
I'm not telling you where to put them.
Okay.
The use case is you're a realtor, and I guess realtors have been using them for years.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Realtors will put them in
Okay.
a
You pull up out front.
pull it up
Yeah.
front.
I mean, you pull up out front, and it sends a
It
message to
sends a
you.
message, and
Okay.
there's no open house. You can open it, and you can get the virtual tour, right? So it only
Yeah.
works on Android. But for me, I was like, huh, awesome. And so the key though is I'm trying to be responsible and not write a spammy message. Um, but it is a little bit of viral marketing, and it's using some limitation in Android to give. It comes up in notifications. You can see it, and I'm sure people are like, "What the hell is this?" And they click on it, and I'm probably getting a certain amount of that traffic through. But for the testing I've been using in retail locations, it's been really incredible. Um,
So this little unit is self-powered, right?
Self-powered,
Got
last,
like its own little
yep,
it's got
battery,
its own little, like hearing aid battery in
yep,
it or something
and
like that.
it lasts 2 years. Somehow
Okay.
I don't know the function or the science and how, because you can change the message on the devices at any time. They do a review. I haven't had anything denied yet, but I've been trying to be real careful not to be spammy.
So are
Uh,
they Wi-Fi connected, or
don't know. Don't know
are
how
they
they
just
don't. There must be.
proximity?
Well, it's definitely
Um,
proximity. It's 100 meters, but I don't.
no, but
They
to actually program them.
Yeah, but I don't have
I
to
mean,
have
is it
them
like
here. I don't have to have them here. They can be in their location. I can change the message and the message updates. So it's some sort of interaction between the company. They must get some signal when it happens and cue the company. I don't know how it happens behind the scenes, to be honest with you. It is one question I have. Someone will probably tell me, but um,
because I mean, for it to I mean, it would have to have some sort of Wi-Fi connection
again, I think it's got a
for it to get
code.
that.
It's got a
Yeah.
code, so I'm sure what it does is it signals. There must be some interaction. There's no way the device updates. There's no way to update the device. It doesn't. I can have it in. I can update them from here, and it doesn't have to be in the room. But again, they go to their website to do it. Now it does cost $50 a month for 3, but from what I'm seeing so far, um, paying for themselves easily paying for them. But again, you have to, if you don't have the traffic, you got to have some place where there's some volume in order to do these. So they're pretty slick.
So
It's
do they work better inside, or are they an outside device?
I've not seen it. I've had 3 in my car. Everywhere I drive, they're on. So not having an issue in my car, or again, most of them were we have not put inside the business, but I'm sure you could.
Hmm.
And again, it was largely to try to drive foot traffic, and we give them a coupon, to use or a free entree or whatever. It is really it's a slick little marketing tool, kind of I mean, it's again one of those things. It's you have to be careful on the tactic that you use, but
So are they usually located in the proximity around a particular establishment outside?
Yeah, but Gary Leland is actually using them too, and he says that and Roy actually just put a link up in the show notes. It says it's a push notification. Once they leave the 100-yard area, the message disappears. So anyway, it's
Message just,
yeah.
hmm.
But I spend a lot of time sitting in traffic.
Oh, so when you drive past something, it's
Right,
sending.
right.
Well, that's a that's a technology that's been talked about a lot. Apple's been playing around. I mean, I think Apple called it beacons, didn't he? Didn't they?
Well, I don't think it's a beacon, but it has to have. You have to have. The person
It's the
has to
same
have
concept, though.
yeah, same concept, but the person has to have Bluetooth turned on. If the Bluetooth is turned on, it won't work. It's somehow using the Bluetooth function to be able to do this.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I'm sorry I took us to the end here with this.
It's fine.
But
That's it. It's an
it's
interesting topic. I'm not sure what the application is for podcasting, but
well, I'm promoting my show with one of them. So
are you?
yeah. So what I do is I say subscribe to Geek. It's basically check out Podcast Geek News Central or something like that. And when they click on it, I send them to the subscribe on Android page, or if they have a podcast app already, it opens a podcast app.
So where would you actually locate that for that purpose?
It's in my car.
Oh, so it's transmitting out from your car out to people that are like sitting next to you at a stoplight or something.
Yes. Yes.
That,
Yes.
okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm envisioning. I can just see people driving on the freeway next to you, and they get a message
Ding.
about your
They're like,
new
where the hell did this come from?
Okay.
It's brilliant. Daniel says, "Oh, this would be brilliant to take to a relevant event."
A podcast movement.
Oh, imagine that! And if you haven't ordered one already, it's too late. They're behind in shipping because I ordered 6 more the other day.
Well, it could be used for just sharing contact, information
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. I mean, so we'll see. So, yeah, Android users at Podcast Movement, leave your Bluetooth on.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, everyone.
All right. Well, you're done here, right?
Yeah.
10:30.
And I gotta, and it's actually I need to be rolling here very quickly. So just so everyone knows too, Rob, I get back. Believe it or not, I fly back Saturday morning. I turn around, clean my suitcase, do laundry, and I fly out Saturday night to Florida. So there's no way I can do a show next week. So
Okay.
and we may have to push the following week's show to Sunday. We'll figure it out. We'll talk about it podcast when we can do a show. But
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm out of here for 2 weeks, starting Monday night, and obviously a week in Florida. But crazy, I'm coming home just to change suitcase out. But that's the way it worked out.
Yeah. Yep.
Um,
Okay.
Everyone,
Sounds good.
thanks for being here, and those of you coming to Podcast Movement, please come and say hello to us at our booths. Just come by and say hi.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are not, we're going to have a lot to talk about when we get back about what happened at the show. You can reach me, Todd, at blueberry.com. The Twitter account is at Geek News. Rob?
Rob at Spreaker.com is a great place to reach out to me. Rob at Rob Greenlee. You can, if you want to send a private message, and I'm on Twitter at Rob Greenlee as well, and I'm at robgreenlee.com. So fairly easy to find.
It's been our pleasure to bring the show to you today. I hope you had a good time. I know that I did. And we'll see you the next go around here on the New Media Show. Everyone, take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.